Hi everyone, welcome back to another video for our YouTube channel, Winter's Bloom. Today, Natasha and I are both here to discuss our friendship, I guess, and to discuss how our friendship has grown, how it's changed, and yeah, where it is right now, I guess, over the last 6 years. Has it been more than 6 years? 6 years. Wow, that feels like a very long time. But I'm going to hand over to Natasha, who is going to kind of give the backstory about how we met, and then I guess we'll take it from there and just have a conversation about it.
Well, thanks, Sophia. As maybe some of you know, maybe some of you don't, Sophia and I met back in 2014 at the University of St. Andrews. And at the time, I was doing my junior year abroad, and Sophia was a first year. And we met in student halls, so we were on the same floor. Um, and yeah, we just kind of connected really quickly. I think it was one of those, at least from my perspective, it was one of those moments where you kind of feel as if you've known someone for a long time, even though you've just met. And yeah, it was just one of those things where I feel that we had a lot in common, but also a lot to learn from each other. And I think we're both very inquisitive souls. And so that was a really big foundation of our friendship. We definitely got into some shenanigans while at St. Andrews,
Oh, yeah.
but we also like built a lot of trust and respect for each other. I think we were both kind of in that mentality or in that space where everything was really new. Like for Sophia, it was her first year at university, and for me, it was my first year, living in this new university, this new country, this new place. So there was a lot that we were trying to learn and to understand. But yeah, that was 6 years ago, and since then we have been in touch off and on, more on than off. Um, but we have come together. We've gone traveling together. We've visited with each other. We've connected through video conferencing and WhatsApp voice notes and text messages and stuff. But that's kind of a brief overview of our friendship over the past 6 years. Very brief. That doesn't do it much justice. I am going to pass it back over to Sophia, who's going to share a little bit more about how we thought up the idea for this video.
Yeah, so the idea for this video was kind of inspired by our theme of the month, which is independence and growth, particularly the growth element of the theme of the month. We thought it'd just be really cool to see how our friendship has kind of transformed over the years and how it's grown, and moved from a friendship of physical proximity to a long distance friendship. So yeah, that's really where the idea came from. And I thought it'd be interesting because often we also talk a lot about long distance romantic relationships, which obviously, well, they're different for many different reasons. I think there's a different intensity, a different emotion attached to it. But I feel like there's not really much discussion about long-term friendships, and long distance friendships. So we kind of just wanted to give space to that experience as well. So Natasha, I guess my question to you is, what do you remember from our friendship shifting from a physical proximity friendship to being a long distance friendship?
So it's interesting, this question, because when I think back on the memory of like that actual time period of transitioning, I only really remember like that moment of saying goodbye, I think because it was so sad. And obviously, I know that we have nurtured this friendship since then. But basically, I just remember saying goodbye to you. I think it was like up the hill from our halls. And it was just one of those moments where I think I don't exactly know. Like I remember us hugging, and I definitely was crying a little bit, but it was one of those things where I think both of us kind of knew that we just had to do it because it was going to be so painful to just drag it out longer. Um, so yeah, so I think we had spent the last few nights together because you were cleaning the halls over summer break. Um, and then I left, and you made me this really nice photo book that I still have. but yeah, that was like it was a really beautiful and painful moment. And then I remember coming back to the US and being involved in like a summer program kind of thing. Um, and I'm sure that we started video chatting or going back and forth, but again, I don't have the exact memory of that like transition after the moment of our departure. But yeah, what about you? Do you have any memory of that time?
It's interesting you say that. I think the saying goodbye also very much stuck in my head as that being a defining moment in terms of our friendship shifting or transforming. And not to go too much on a tangent, but I just remember the day, like maybe the last 2 days leading up to it, just feeling really like angsty and maybe a bit distant, just because I was like trying to whatever, like emotionally prepare myself. But I also remember crying. Um, and yeah, I think that summer, I feel that we, like what I remember of it was that, yeah, I feel like you were quite occupied with the research internship that you were doing. And I was traveling quite a bit as well that summer. I think I went to Bulgaria, to Italy, and somewhere else. And so I think like over the summer we were mainly messaging on Facebook. I don't think you had a smartphone yet to have WhatsApp. So yeah, I remember that. And then it's weird though, because I feel like now I almost can't remember what our friendship was like living in physical proximity, like literally just across the hallway from each other. I feel like it's just kind of not become characterized, but so much of it is virtual that this just feels like the normal part of our relationship or our friendship. Um, yeah, I remember though that we definitely did at one point video chat that summer, but I feel like most of it was messaging. I can't remember the emotions that accompanied that shift, but that's what I remember of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I wanted to ask you as well, like, what, I guess we have talked a little bit about that, but like, what are some of the practical things that we have done over the 6 years that we've known each other to maintain our friendship?
It's a good question. I think like the first thing that comes to mind, and perhaps the most important thing that we've done, is that even though, especially at the beginning when we didn't have like winter's bloom, and so we're much less communication or not communication, I guess less frequently, was that I felt that when we did take the time out to talk to each other, it was like for at least an hour. It was like we actually carved the time to fully be like present and to listen to each other and to catch up. And I feel like if it wasn't video chats, we'd, you know, occasionally like send each other messages, updating about like what was happening in our lives. So I think the fact, yeah, it was coming together and both putting in the effort to keep in contact and to nurture our relationship. And I think sometimes as well, it's just, well, I think it depends on the two individuals, but I think we just both had the understanding that our love for each other wasn't based on the amount of time we necessarily spent speaking, but like the quality of time. And so it wasn't like a condition where it was like, oh, we need to speak to each other like this amount of time or whatever amount of times in a month, a week, to maintain our friendship. Just more like whenever we came together, it just felt like we were picking up where we left off. What other practical things do you think we did? Oh, actually, sorry, another thing quickly was writing letters. I think that was really nice. um, yeah, that also kind of brought an element of physical proximity, in the sense, you know, that like I was just like seeing your handwriting and something that I knew that you had touched, and you know, I could imagine you writing it or just reading it in your voice and stuff. Kind of brought well, in a sense, brought back that physical proximity. But yeah, how about you?
Well, so while you were talking about that, I was thinking about, I think this kind of answers both your last question and this question. Um, so yeah, I think what really like a lot of memories are starting to come back, and I don't think it was until I went back to finish my final year of university that we really started making that practice of talking with each other, you know, over the phone or through video chat, and that was definitely really helpful. And I also think the letters were really good too, but I remember after first transitioning back, I think there was like I want to call it intuition, but there was something in me that like knew this wasn't goodbye forever. But I think, you know, when that happens, when that transition happens from being in physical proximity to not being in physical proximity, there was almost this like hesitation that I had, because I was like, oh, how is this relationship going to pan out? Like, how are we going to shift our expectations of this relationship?
Mhm.
But then I think it was about like creating that practice, and also entrusting that when we finally did come together, that it would just be as if we had never left each other. And however that took form, like obviously we weren't physically together, but that's something that I've noticed as well, because throughout the 6 years, like obviously not all the time, but throughout the 6 years, we have gone on some travel adventures together. And that was like, that definitely, I think, as much as I think, you know, video chatting and sending each other letters and making that time and space for each other has been a very important aspect of our friendship as well. I think having those adventures with each other, and like making that extended time to be with each other really reaffirmed in my mind that like, I think our friendship is one of those friendships that no matter how long we spend apart from each other, when we're actually together, whether it's virtually or physically together, it's going to be kind of the same as how it was. You know, like our friendship is always going to be strong. Um, so yeah, I guess that maybe answers both of those questions in one, hopefully.
Drawing on from what you're saying as well, I think not that there was a lack of expectation, but I think there was definitely, I feel like our friendship has really taught me kind of, I wouldn't say unconditional love, because I don't know, even that term, I think when I think about it too much logically, I'm like, everything has a condition. Obviously, like if Natasha was like to start disrespecting me or whatever, then that's a condition for me feeling, you know, love towards you or whatever. So I mean, but like in the, so yeah, maybe unconditional, well, as close as can be to unconditional love, because I do think love does have conditions, and it should. Anyway, that's a side note. But I think, yeah, like the expectations that accompany relationships sometimes I just felt wasn't present, or not as strongly. Like I kind of mentioned this before, but not being like, okay, we need to speak this amount of time,
Mm.
whatever, in order to be friends, or you need to do X, Y, and Z for us to be friends. So I think that also played a big part, and it really taught me how to love and letting go, as as you wrote a post about on our blog, which I'll be linked below for a shameless plug. But I guess since we've talked about the, well, I don't want to go into binaries of positive or negative, but what have been perhaps the more challenging aspects of maintaining I'm saying long term, it is a long distance friendship?
So I guess on a more practical level, the time difference between us, because
Yeah.
Sophia is in the UK and I'm in the US. And not only that, but I'm on the west coast of the US. So it's, I think, 8 to 9 hours that separate us. So, you know, finding a time to work for both of us, particularly when we were both in school, was challenging. And then also, I mean, maybe not so much now because we're still kind of on lockdown, but, you know, when we had jobs or whatever, that was always a little bit of a challenge. I think also, though maybe less so now, because I think with Winter's Bloom, we are almost constantly in contact. I don't think there's been one day that we haven't heard from each other over Messenger or whatever. But I think before we had this platform linking us more intimately, I think that there were some times where like we had planned to talk, and then either I wasn't able to or Sophia wasn't able to, and you know, that happens in every friendship where, you know, sometimes you're not on the same like link, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, or same cycle, I don't know, but I remember sometimes those would be challenges, and that's totally normal because, you know, people get busy and we have a long distance relationship. But I think, again, kind of cycling back to that respect and that trust in our relationship, even if we missed speaking with each other or catching up with each other, we knew that we would inevitably do it again. We knew that wasn't going to be the end. So yeah, those are some of the challenges that I was thinking of. What about you? Are there any others that you can think of?
Um, Kind of going back to the time difference, although Natasha is an early riser, which has been good because it means that, like, yeah, when she starts her day, it's still like daytime or like afternoon for me. But I feel that And I feel like maybe less so now. I've kind of gotten used to it, but I have felt that there were like moments where I don't know, something either really like positive or joyous, or yeah, something that I just really wanted to celebrate or share with you. I would text that or whatever, put in a voice note, and then I would just like be buzzing to wait for you to like wake up and listen to it and then like for us to talk about it, or the opposite. And I think it tends to be harder when it's like the opposite, when it's just like something, I don't know, not so great has happened, and it's just like, oh, I want to share it with like, yeah, I want to share it with like my best friends, and you know, it's again the same thing of having to kind of wait. But I feel like there's the positive to that, that it allows me to, especially with the negative stuff, or not like the negative stuff, but like the not so great emotions, to kind of process that beforehand. And in a way, I think it's probably good, so that I'm not like just offloading all this like heavy emotional whatever feelings, because we had that space or that time in between. So I guess it's a challenge, but also has a positive side. Another challenge, I guess, comes naturally with the fact that we're not together. And so I think, yeah, like part of me misses that physical display of affection, and like the intimacy that comes with like hugging, and just like being in each other's presence as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's something that I remember fondly, and also a reason why I think we got so close so soon, is because of that, you know, just like super casual platonic touch. Like I think we've either spoken about this in a podcast or another video, but I just remember within, I don't know, probably the same day we actually met each other. Um, I just have this really strong memory of like waiting in line for an event, and you just came up behind me and put your hands on my shoulders, and I don't know why that memory has stuck with me so much, but I think as a younger kid, and even up through high school, I had always been very touchy-feely with a lot of my friends. And then at university, for some reason, that kind of shifted. And so that was like, you know, it felt so easy with you to have that. And so, yeah, that has also been a challenge, just not being able to like reach through the computer and give you a hug or something. Um, but yeah, anyway, um, I was wondering if you had any insights to share or lessons to share about how you think that distance has shaped our friendship.
I don't know how much of this is can be attributed to distance, or if it's just like it would have happened naturally. Or I don't know, because I feel like, yeah, I just don't know how much distance weighs in this, but I feel that our friendship has definitely deepened and strengthened. And I think that is in part due to the distance. It's just like learning to, again, not always have, well, very rarely have that physical touch and that physical proximity that can also, because I think like a big part of closeness tends to be proximity to other people. And so I think in a way our friendship has been deepened because we don't have that, and so we have to focus on different aspects in order to nurture our friendship. And I think as well we have kind of, our friendship is so respectful, because I think, I mean, we've spoken about this in our podcast. I don't think we've ever had an argument or really a really big disagreement or anything, but just the fact as well that, you know, in the situation that we did, we wouldn't be able to use physical gestures or physically come together to resolve something. And so I think we've put a lot of emphasis on expressing ourselves to one another, and yeah, really learning how to use words to connect with each other. So I think that shaped our friendship in a way that I think is unique to other friendships that I have, like with people that I know in the UK, where it's more like hanging out is, you know, enough, or not enough, but it's just a different dynamic where like sometimes hanging out is the big part of the friendship and not necessarily what we're saying to each other, the conversations we're having. How about you?
Yeah, I think that if I were to categorize our friendship, which maybe categorize is the wrong term, but I think the friendship and the relationship that we have nurtured has almost kind of been like an undercurrent of my life, if that makes sense. Like I know that we met 6 years ago, but it almost feels like I know that this sounds silly to say and maybe dramatic to say, but I can't necessarily remember what it was like before we met, like, without you in my life. Because I feel that we have, yeah, it's just like, it's just kind of like a constant. And it's something that I feel that I have full trust in. And yeah, so there's not necessarily those like negotiations and renegotiations that I feel that I might have in some other relationships that I hold, whether they're like physical proximity or distance as well. Um, but yeah, I also think like I'm trying to remember as well, like how it is when we are physically distanced, and then as we mentioned before, like how it is when we go on adventures together or whatever. And one thing that I really appreciate and love about our friendship is because I think you and I both are kind of like we're extroverted introverts in that we like to spend time with other people, but we also need time to recharge our batteries on our own. And I think that like when we're physically apart, that definitely plays out because we connect when we connect, and then we also have time to kind of take care of ourselves. But that also, at least in my perspective, to my memory, plays out when we're physically together. Because I just remember when we're, whether I'm there visiting you or whether we're like traveling somewhere else, um, I feel something that I feel very rarely in a lot of my relationships is that like comfortable quiet, if that makes sense. Where we can be together and be talking about things, but we can also kind of be together in a calmer, or maybe calmer is not the right word, but in that stillness and in that quiet, which I think is something that being long distance has helped to shape because we become so accustomed to yeah, like waiting, anticipating the response, and like spending time in that stillness.
Yeah.
So that when we're actually together, I think that is a dynamic that shows through as well.
That's a really cool dynamic. Yeah, that like now you're saying it, I see, but would have never really sat to think that like the distance could have shaped that. So it's a really cool reflection.
Um, is there anything else, Sophia, that you think we should share now before we close off this video?
I have like thoughts, but I feel like it could turn into a whole nother video. But I was just thinking of this very briefly in relation to, yeah, like romantic long distance relationships that I've had. And again, like I said, I guess it's a different intensity and also different expectations, obviously, like in a romantic sense to a friendship sense. But I think this friendship has, like, if I was ever to get into another long distance relationship, I think this is really, this will be like a friendship that I would model that relationship on, just because I think the dynamics and, like you said, the balance and the harmony that we experience in this friendship is, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's unique because I'm pretty sure other people have similar experiences, but it's like unique for me compared to other relationships that I have. And not to like compare it to other relationships that I have, but I just acknowledge it for being unique, and I'm very grateful for it. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for our friendship as well. And I think if you listen to any of our podcasts, any of our videos, like it very much underlies everything. So we do have a little microcosm of love here. Thank you everyone for joining us in this video as we talk about our friendship, both the more personal aspects and also the more practical aspects of maintaining a long distance friendship. We hope that it was somewhat helpful or that you could identify yourself in some of these things. And if there's anything more that you want to hear about it, please feel free to comment with suggestions on what you hear about. We're always wanting to answer your questions or fill a void or a gap in any way. If you want to connect with us, all of our information is down below in the show notes. We have a website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, obviously, and podcast. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.